He came every night just for coffee. She had no idea he was the lonely millionaire single dad. The next few days felt different. The air was charged with an unspoken tension that Sarah couldn't quite shake. Jack's words echoed in her mind. I've been thinking about you too. And I think it's time I told you who I really am. She tried to push it out of her thoughts, but it lingered like a melody she couldn't stop humming. Every night when he came in, the anticipation grew. She still didn't know what to make of it, but she couldn't help feeling that something significant was unfolding. It was Friday evening when Jack came in again. This time, he didn't sit at his usual spot by the window. Instead, he chose a table near the counter where Sarah worked. As she approached to take his order, she felt a knot form in her stomach. What if he was serious? What if he really was someone important? She had heard the rumors about Jack. Some said he was a millionaire. Others whispered that he owned the coffee shop chain. But Sarah never thought much of it. He was just another quiet guy who liked his coffee, right? She couldn't be sure, but she knew that tonight would be different. As she placed his usual cup of black coffee on the table, she couldn't help but glance at him. His eyes were steady, waiting for her to sit down. I wasn't sure how to say this, he began, his voice low but clear. But the truth is, I've been coming here every night because I like the simplicity. I like how you don't know who I am. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Was this really happening? Jack, she said slowly, trying to keep her voice steady. I don't understand. What do you mean? He smiled softly. I mean, I'm not just some random guy who drinks coffee alone every night. I'm the CEO of Parker Enterprises. I own this coffee shop chain, and I've been hiding who I am from you. Sarah blinked, feeling her heart race. Her mind was spinning, trying to process what he had just said. You own all of this? She asked, gesturing around the room. Jack nodded. Yes, I do. But that's not why I've been coming here. I come here because I wanted something real. I wanted to connect with someone who didn't see me as just the CEO. Someone who would treat me like a regular guy, not a billionaire with $1 billion company on his shoulders. The words hit Sarah like a wave, leaving her breathless. She took a step back, unsure of how to respond. She had always known Jack as this quiet, reserved man who came in every night for his coffee. He was a stranger in her world, and she had treated him like one. But now everything had changed. She didn't know what to think. Was he trying to impress her? Was he testing her? Or was this just some elaborate game to him? Why tell me this now? She asked, her voice almost a whisper. Why reveal this to me? Jack's gaze softened. Because, Sarah, you're different. You don't know who I am, and yet you've been kind to me. You've treated me like a human being, not some untouchable figure. And that means more to me than you could ever imagine. Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. She wasn't sure what she had expected, but it certainly wasn't this. She had never imagined that the man who sat at the counter, reading his book and sipping his coffee, was hiding such a big secret. So what now? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Jack took a deep breath, his eyes locking with hers. Now, I want to offer you something. A chance. A real chance. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. A chance at what? She asked, barely able to contain her curiosity. Jack smiled, his expression serious yet kind. A chance at a better life. I want to offer you a job at my company. A real position, not just some side gig. You've got talent, Sarah. I've seen it in you. And I think you deserve more than working here every night just to pay your bills. Sarah stared at him in disbelief. Was he serious? Was this some kind of dream? You're offering me a job? She asked, her voice thick with surprise. Jack nodded. Yes, but that's not all. I want to help you pursue your art. I know it's important to you. I'll make sure you have the resources to make it happen. Sarah's mind was racing. This was too much to process all at once. She had spent years struggling to make ends meet, and now, here was Jack Parker, the millionaire CEO, offering her a chance to completely change her life. But, why me? She asked, still not fully understanding. Jack leaned forward, his voice soft but sincere. Because you see me. You see who I am, not what I have. And that's rare. For the first time in days, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the opportunity she had been waiting for her whole life. The next few days were a blur for Sarah. She couldn't stop thinking about the conversation she had with Jack. He had opened a door to a world she never thought was possible. The offer seemed too good to be true, and yet, something about Jack's sincerity made it hard to dismiss. She kept replaying his words in her mind. You deserve more than working here every night just to pay your bills. And I want to help you pursue your art. Could this be real? Could she really have a chance to leave behind her struggles and step into a life she had only dreamed about? The uncertainty weighed heavily on her, but she also felt something stirring inside her that she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. That night, after the coffee shop closed, she sat in her small apartment staring at the sketchbook in front of her. She hadn't picked it up in weeks, not since life had gotten in the way. The bills, the late-night shifts, the constant worry about what tomorrow would bring. Art had been her passion, her escape, but somewhere along the way, it had become something she simply couldn't afford. Now, Jack had given her a glimpse of a future where that passion could be more than just a distant dream. The offer he made was life-changing, but it was also terrifying. What if she took the job and failed? What if she wasn't good enough for the world Jack was offering her? She had never been someone who took risks, always careful, always playing it safe. But Jack had seen something in her, something that made him believe in her potential, and for the first time, she wondered if she could believe in herself the way he believed in her. The next evening, as she walked into the coffee shop, she saw Jack sitting at his usual spot. But this time, there was something different in the way he looked at her. His gaze was softer, more understanding. She had known him as the quiet, reserved man who always seemed distant. But now she could see the kindness behind his eyes. As she approached, Jack gave her a small, reassuring smile. "Sarah," he said, his voice warm, "I know this is a big decision. You don't have to answer right away. Take your time. But know that the offer still stands, and I'll support whatever choice you make." His words comforted her, but they also reminded her of the weight of the decision. She had never been the type to take risks, but something about Jack made her feel like maybe it was time to start. She took a deep breath, looked him in the eye, and said, "I'll take the job, Jack. I'll do it." The moment the words left her lips, she felt a wave of relief wash over her, as if a burden had been lifted. But at the same time, she felt an electric charge run through her, a mixture of excitement and fear. Jack's face lit up with a smile. "You won't regret it, Sarah," he said, his voice filled with genuine warmth. "This is just the beginning." As Sarah walked away from the coffee shop that night, a sense of possibility filled her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was stepping into something better. She had a job offer from a millionaire CEO, someone who believed in her, and for the first time in ages, she believed in herself too. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of meetings and paperwork. Sarah signed the contract to officially join Jack's company, and soon, she found herself in a world that was both exciting and overwhelming. She started working at Parker Enterprises, and everything about it felt different from what she had known before. The office was sleek, modern, and bustling with energy. She met people who were not only successful but also passionate about their work. It was a far cry from the small coffee shop where she had spent most of her nights. But despite the newness of it all, she felt a sense of belonging she hadn't anticipated. Jack was supportive every step of the way, guiding her through the challenges of her new role. He encouraged her to take on projects that allowed her to incorporate her artistic side, and slowly, she started to gain confidence in her abilities. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah found herself growing both professionally and personally. She wasn't just the waitress anymore. She was an integral part of a team, someone whose ideas and creativity were valued. She started seeing her art in a new light, not just as a hobby, but as something that could be part of her career, part of the life she was now building. One evening, after a long day at work, Sarah found herself back at the coffee shop. Jack wasn't there, but she could still feel his presence, his encouragement lingering in the air. She sat down in the same spot where they had first talked, her sketchbook in front of her. For the first time in months, she picked up a pencil and began to sketch. The lines came easily, the shapes flowing naturally, and for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. She had a new life now, one where her dreams were within reach, and she was no longer afraid to chase them. As she looked at her sketch, a small smile crept onto her face. She knew that with Jack's help, she was on the path to something greater. And for the first time, she truly believed in herself. As Sarah settled into her new role at Parker Enterprises, everything seemed to fall into place. Her mornings were spent in meetings, her afternoons working on projects that combined her creative ideas with business strategies. It was everything she had ever dreamed of, and more. But it wasn't just the work that was changing, it was her whole life. She felt a shift in herself, a sense of growth she hadn't experienced before. She had always been a hard worker, but now she felt like she was truly thriving. The first time she stood in front of a conference room, presenting her ideas to a group of executives, she could hardly believe it was her. Not long ago, she was struggling to make ends meet, and now she was leading a team, her voice steady and confident as she spoke. She looked around the room at the faces of her colleagues, all of them nodding in approval, and a sense of pride washed over her. She had earned this moment. She had earned her place here. But despite the new challenges and successes, there was still something missing, something she hadn't quite figured out yet. It wasn't the job or the success, it was Jack. The connection she felt with him had grown deeper over time, and it wasn't just because of the job offer. It was the way he had believed in her when no one else had, the way he had seen potential in her that she didn't even see in herself. It was more than just professional respect, it was something personal. Over the past few weeks, their interactions had shifted. Jack had stopped by her office a few times to check on her progress, always offering encouragement. But there was a warmth in his voice now that made her heart race every time he spoke. It wasn't just about the work anymore. They would have lunch together, sometimes just the two of them, talking about everything and nothing. He shared stories about his company, about his life as a single dad, and slowly, Sarah found herself opening up to him as well. She told him about her childhood, about the dreams she had before life had gotten in the way, and he listened, really listened, with genuine interest. And then, one evening, everything changed. It was late, the office was nearly empty, and Sarah was finishing up some last-minute work when Jack appeared at her door. He stood there for a moment, just looking at her, before he spoke. "Sarah, we need to talk." His voice was serious, more serious than she had ever heard it before. She put down her pen and stood up, sensing that something important was about to happen. "Of course, Jack," she replied, trying to steady her nerves. He walked into her office, closing the door behind him. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," he said, his gaze never leaving hers. "About you. About us." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. What was he saying? Was this what she had been hoping for? Or was it something else? She couldn't tell. "Jack," she said softly, "what do you mean?" He stepped closer, his expression softening. "I mean that I'm not just offering you a job, Sarah. I'm offering you something more." Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat. Was this really happening? Was he telling her that he wanted more than just a professional relationship? She could feel her heart pounding in her chest. "More?" she whispered, barely able to speak. Jack nodded slowly. "Yes, I care about you, Sarah. I have for a while now. And I think you care about me too." Sarah took a step back, her mind racing. She had known there was something between them, but she hadn't been sure. She hadn't wanted to make assumptions, but now it seemed like Jack was making his intentions clear. She could feel the weight of the moment. She had always been cautious, always careful not to mix work with personal life, but everything was different with Jack. "I do care about you, Jack," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just didn't know if it was something you felt too." Jack smiled, his eyes warm. "It is, and I want to be honest with you about it. I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want to just be your boss. I want to be someone you can count on, someone you can be with." Sarah felt a wave of emotion rush over her. She had never imagined that this would happen, that she would find herself in this moment, with someone who not only believed in her professionally, but also cared for her personally. She had been so focused on her career, so determined to prove herself, that she hadn't realized how much she had been missing. "Jack," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I don't know what to say. This is all so new to me." He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "You don't have to say anything right now. I just wanted you to know how I feel. And I want to see where this can go." The words hung in the air between them, and Sarah felt a mix of excitement and fear. She had always been careful with her heart, but with Jack, something felt different. She wasn't sure what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was ready to take a chance. Jack smiled at her, his eyes full of hope. "I don't want to rush you, Sarah. We can take it slow. But I think we have something special here, and I want to see where it leads." Sarah nodded, her heart swelling with emotion. "I think I do too, Jack." And with that, everything changed. Sarah's life was no longer just about the job or the struggle to survive. It was about something deeper, something real. She was ready to take the next step, not just in her career, but in her heart as well. In the weeks that followed, Sarah and Jack's relationship blossomed in a way neither of them had expected. At first, it had been about the job, the professional connection that had brought them together, but now it was about something more. Their bond had deepened, and what had started as a simple offer of support from Jack had grown into something both tender and profound. They spent more time together outside of work, talking about everything from their dreams to their fears. Jack, who had once been so closed off, had started opening up to Sarah in a way he hadn't done with anyone before. He told her about his struggles as a single dad, the challenges of balancing a demanding career with raising his daughter, Lily, who was now 10. Sarah could see how much he cared for her, how he had built his life around providing for her. But she also noticed the loneliness in his eyes whenever he spoke about his past. It was clear that despite his success, Jack had sacrificed so much along the way. Sarah had her own share of baggage, but she was starting to see her future with a new lens, one that was no longer clouded by doubts or insecurities. Her confidence at work had grown, and her creative side began to flourish. Jack encouraged her to take on bigger projects, even allowing her to lead a few high-profile presentations. Her ideas were being taken seriously, and for the first time in her life, she felt like her potential was limitless. It was a dream come true in many ways, but it wasn't just the career success that was changing her life. It was the way Jack made her feel. She had never known a man like him. He was kind, patient, and genuine, and he never pressured her to be anything other than herself. But the deeper they got into their relationship, the more Sarah realized there were still things they hadn't fully addressed. She loved Jack, that much was clear, but she was still unsure about what it would mean to be with someone like him. He was a millionaire, a CEO, and she had never been one to date someone from a world so far removed from her own. She was afraid of the expectations that might come with it, afraid of losing herself in his world. One evening, after a long day at the office, Sarah sat on the balcony of her apartment, looking out at the city lights. Her mind was racing, and she needed to clear her thoughts. She had so many emotions swirling inside her, and she didn't know how to sort through them. Just as she was about to go back inside, she heard a soft knock on the door. She turned and saw Jack standing there, his expression warm but concerned. "I thought you might be out here," he said gently, stepping onto the balcony and sitting next to her. "What's on your mind, Sarah?" Sarah hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to put her feelings into words. "I don't know," she said finally. Sometimes, I feel like I don't belong in your world, Jack. You have everything, success, wealth, a beautiful daughter, and I'm just me, a waitress who's just starting to find her way. I'm afraid I might not be enough." Jack looked at her, his gaze soft and understanding. "Sarah," he said quietly, "you are more than enough. You're everything I've been looking for, and I've never once doubted that." She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "But you have so much, Jack. I don't want to feel like I'm just someone who's along for the ride." Jack reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "Sarah, this isn't about what I have. It's about us. I'm not asking you to fit into my world. I want you to bring your world into mine. You are enough, and I don't need you to change anything about yourself." His words were like a balm to her heart, soothing the doubts that had been gnawing at her. She looked at him, her heart full. "I just don't want to lose myself, Jack," she whispered. "I want to be with you, but I need to know that I'm still me." Jack smiled, his eyes filled with sincerity. "You don't have to lose yourself, Sarah. I love you for who you are, and as long as we're together, you'll never have to be anything other than yourself." For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. She realized that she had been afraid of losing herself in this relationship, but now she saw that Jack wasn't asking her to change. He was asking her to be the best version of herself, and he would be there to support her every step of the way. As they sat together, the city lights twinkling below them, Sarah knew that this was just the beginning. She was ready to take the next step, not just in her career, but in her heart. She was ready to embrace her future, whatever it might hold, with Jack by her side. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah and Jack continued to grow closer, their connection deepening in ways neither of them had expected. Their relationship, once built on a professional foundation, had blossomed into something more, something that felt right, something they both wanted. Sarah felt a warmth in her heart every time Jack smiled at her, every time he touched her hand, and every time they shared a quiet moment together. It was a love that had come unexpectedly, but felt like it had always been meant to be. But even as their bond grew stronger, Sarah knew that there were still challenges ahead. She had always been independent, and the idea of relying on someone, especially someone as successful and powerful as Jack, was not something she was used to. She had worked hard for everything she had, and while Jack had offered her opportunities that seemed to open doors she never imagined, there was still a part of her that was hesitant. It wasn't just about Jack's wealth or status. It was about her own fears of losing herself in someone else's world. She needed to find a way to balance her ambitions with the love she had found. One evening, after another long day at the office, Sarah found herself sitting in her apartment, her mind racing. She had just finished a meeting with a potential client for Jack's company, and while the meeting had gone well, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. She was doing well at work, but she felt like she was losing sight of the one thing that had always grounded her, her art. For so long, she had put her passion for painting on the back burner, focusing instead on building a career and supporting herself. But now, with Jack by her side, she felt the urge to pick up a paintbrush again, to return to the thing that had once given her so much joy. As she sat there, she heard a soft knock at the door. It was Jack. She opened the door to find him standing there, holding a small package in his hand. "I thought you might like something," he said with a smile. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" Jack handed her the package. "Open it and see." She carefully tore open the wrapping and found a set of high-quality paints and brushes. It was exactly what she needed, everything she had been wanting but hadn't allowed herself to buy. "Jack, this is amazing," she said, her voice filled with surprise and gratitude. "I've been thinking about picking up painting again, but I didn't know where to start." Jack smiled softly. "I know how much your art means to you, Sarah. You've always been so focused on your work here, but I want you to remember what you love. I want you to pursue your passion, not just for yourself, but for us. You're more than just a businesswoman. You're an artist, and I want to support that." Sarah's heart swelled with emotion as she looked at the paints in her hands. She had never expected something like this, but it meant the world to her. It was a reminder that Jack saw her, not just as his employee or his partner, but as the person she had always been, someone with dreams and passions beyond the confines of a corporate world. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what to say." Jack reached out and gently cupped her face in his hands. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that I'm here for you, no matter what. I want you to follow your heart, Sarah." In that moment, Sarah realized just how much she had changed since meeting Jack. She had come so far, not just in her career, but in her personal life as well. She had found love, support, and the courage to pursue her dreams again. She was no longer the woman who doubted herself at every turn. With Jack's encouragement, she felt like she could finally breathe again, like she could be the person she was always meant to be. The next morning, as Sarah sat at her desk in the office, she couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement bubbling inside her. She had a new painting project in mind, one that had been brewing in her mind for weeks, and now, she had the tools to bring it to life. She smiled to herself, knowing that she had the support of the man she loved behind her. It wasn't just about the career or the opportunities. It was about finding a balance between who she was and who she wanted to be. As she worked through the day, her thoughts kept drifting back to the art that now filled her heart with inspiration. She knew that she could have it all. She could have the career, the love, and the passion she had always dreamed of. And with Jack by her side, there was nothing she couldn't accomplish. That evening, after work, she picked up the brushes Jack had given her and started to paint. The strokes felt natural, like an extension of herself, and as the canvas began to fill with color, Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. She was exactly where she was meant to be, living her dream, and doing it with the person who had helped her find the courage to go after it. Jack had given her more than just a job offer. He had given her the chance to reclaim her passion, and for that, she would be forever grateful. As the weeks passed, Sarah's life began to settle into a rhythm that felt both fulfilling and balanced. She was thriving at Parker Enterprises, her artistic talents flourishing alongside her career. The work Jack had given her allowed her to expand her skills and step into new creative territories, and each day she found herself more confident, more sure of her place in the world. But even as things were falling into place professionally, Sarah knew there were still questions in the back of her mind that she had yet to fully address. Questions about her future with Jack. They had been together for months now, and while their connection had deepened in ways Sarah had never imagined, there was still the lingering question of what came next. She had come to love him, not just for the man he was in his role as CEO, but for the person he was at the core, caring, thoughtful, and incredibly patient. But at the same time, Sarah knew she had her own fears. Jack had opened doors for her, offered her opportunities that seemed too good to be true, but deep down, Sarah wondered if their worlds could truly align. She had worked hard for everything she had, and had always been determined to stand on her own 2 feet. Could she continue to do that, even as she found herself so deeply entwined with Jack? Could she be both the independent woman she had always been and the partner he needed her to be? She wasn't sure. One evening, after a particularly long day, Sarah found herself sitting on the balcony of her apartment again, just like she had months ago, looking out over the city. It was quiet now, the streets below lit up by the soft glow of streetlights. She had taken a break from her latest project at work and found herself drifting into thought. She had so much to be grateful for. The job, the love, the fresh start that Jack had given her. But there was still that gnawing doubt inside her. What if, in all of this, she was losing herself? It was then that she heard a knock on the door. She turned to see Jack standing in the doorway, a gentle smile on his face. "I thought I might find you out here," he said, his voice soft and understanding. She smiled and motioned for him to join her, patting the seat next to her. "I've been thinking a lot," she admitted. Jack sat beside her, turning slightly to face her. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his eyes full of warmth and concern. Sarah hesitated for a moment before speaking. I just don't know what comes next for us. I feel like I'm constantly trying to balance everything. The work, the dreams, my art, and I don't know if I'm doing it right. I want to be with you, Jack, but I also don't want to lose myself in the process. I've always been independent, and I'm not sure how to reconcile that with being in a relationship like ours." Jack listened quietly, his expression thoughtful. He didn't rush to respond, instead taking her hand in his, offering her comfort in the way he always did. "I understand," he said gently. "I know this hasn't been easy, and I don't want you to lose yourself in anything, least of all in our relationship. But Sarah, I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are. We're partners in this, and I'll always be here to support you, not to take anything away from you. You don't have to give up your independence to be with me." Sarah looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. His words touched a place inside her she hadn't fully understood until now. She had been afraid that in loving him, she would have to sacrifice parts of herself that were so important. But Jack wasn't asking her to do that. He was asking her to be with him as she was, to bring everything she was to their relationship. And in that moment, she realized something. It wasn't about choosing between her career and her relationship. It was about finding a way to make both work. With Jack's support, she could continue to build the life she had always dreamed of, both professionally and personally. "I think I get it now," she said softly, her voice full of clarity. "I don't have to choose between the two. I can have both. I can be who I am, and still be with you." Jack smiled, his eyes lighting up with relief and affection. "Exactly," he said, his voice full of conviction. "We're a team, Sarah. You don't have to give up anything for me, and I'll never ask you to." Sarah leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder as they looked out over the city together. In that moment, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time in months, she felt like she had found the balance she had been searching for. She didn't have to sacrifice her independence or her dreams. With Jack by her side, she could have it all: love, career, and passion. It wasn't going to be easy, but Sarah knew now that she was ready to face whatever came next. She had found someone who truly understood her, who saw her for who she was, and who wanted to walk beside her. As she built her future, together, they could do anything. As Sarah and Jack continued to grow together, their bond strengthened with each passing day. Their relationship had blossomed into something deeply meaningful, and both of them were fully committed to making it work, no matter what obstacles might come their way. Sarah had found her balance between her career, her art, and her love for Jack, and with every step forward, she felt more confident in her ability to navigate her world. But just as things seemed to be falling perfectly into place, life threw an unexpected challenge their way. It started one evening when Jack received a call that would change everything. Sarah had just finished a late-night work session when she saw Jack pacing in the living room, his phone pressed to his ear, his face serious. "I understand," he was saying, his voice tight. "I'll handle it, don't worry." Sarah could tell that something was off, and her heart tightened in her chest. She waited a few moments before finally approaching him. "Jack, what's going on?" she asked gently. Jack lowered the phone and let out a deep sigh. "It's the company," he said, rubbing his temples. "There's been a setback with a major deal we've been working on for months. We're at risk of losing a big client, and I need to be in the office first thing tomorrow to handle everything." Sarah could see the frustration and worry in his eyes. She knew how much the company meant to him, how hard he had worked to get to where he was, and how much he cared about the people who depended on him. "Do you need me to do anything?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. Jack shook his head. "No, not right now. It's just a lot to handle, and I need to get everything sorted out. But I'm going to be working late for the next few days, and I won't be around as much." His words hit Sarah harder than she expected. She had seen Jack work tirelessly before, but this felt different. It wasn't just about the work anymore. It was about the pressure he was under. She could feel the weight of the situation and the realization that things were about to get even more complicated for both of them. "Jack," she said softly, "I know how much this means to you, but don't forget about us. I know you're going through a lot right now, but I'm here for you. I've always been here for you." Jack gave her a small, grateful smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I know, Sarah, and I appreciate it, more than you know. But right now, I need to focus on the company." Sarah nodded, understanding the pressure he was under, but something inside her stirred. She had always respected Jack's dedication, but she also knew that relationships required attention and effort from both sides. She couldn't just sit back and wait for him to come back to her. She needed to take action, to show him that she understood the struggle, but also needed him to remember the balance they had worked so hard to find. The next few days were filled with tension. Jack was consumed by work, spending long hours at the office, barely able to make time for anything else. Sarah, too, found herself busier than ever, but the space between them felt bigger than just the physical distance. She missed him, missed the quiet moments they had shared, the easy laughter, the closeness. She knew he was doing what he had to do, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping away. One evening, as Sarah was working on a new art piece, she had a realization. She couldn't wait for things to go back to normal. She had to take control of her own happiness, even if that meant making tough decisions. She loved Jack, but she also loved the life she was building for herself. And if they were going to continue building a future together, it had to be one that involved both of them fully, not just as individuals. The next morning, Sarah woke up early, determined to have a conversation with Jack. She had been patient, understanding, but she needed to be honest with him about how she was feeling. She found him in the kitchen, making coffee as he usually did, his face lined with exhaustion. He looked up when he heard her enter. "Morning," he said, his voice tired. "You're up early." Sarah took a deep breath, walking over to where he stood. "Jack, we need to talk," she said softly. Jack frowned, setting his coffee cup down. "About what?" "About us," she replied, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I know you're under a lot of pressure right now, and I get that. But I can't keep pretending like everything is fine. I miss you, Jack. I miss us. I don't want to lose what we've built, but I need to know that we're still a priority for you." Jack's face softened, his exhaustion giving way to concern. "Sarah, I never meant for you to feel like you weren't important to me. You are everything to me. Then show me, Jack. Show me that we're in this together. Because right now, it feels like I'm losing you." Jack stepped forward, taking her hands in his. "I'm sorry, Sarah. You're right. I've been so focused on work that I've neglected what matters most. I promise, I'm going to do better. I'm going to find a way to balance everything. Work, you, and our future." Sarah looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there, and for the first time in days, she felt a sense of relief. She had needed him to say those words, to acknowledge the strain that had been building between them. "I want that too, Jack. I want to keep building our future together." Jack pulled her into an embrace, and for the first time in a while, everything felt right again. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but Sarah knew that as long as they both made the effort, they could overcome anything. As the days passed, Sarah and Jack worked hard to find their balance once more. Jack kept his promise. He made a conscious effort to prioritize their relationship, setting boundaries between work and personal life. He began to schedule time for just the two of them, making space for the quiet moments they had once cherished. They spent more time at home, cooking dinner together, watching movies, and laughing without the weight of stress looming over them. For the first time in a long time, Sarah felt like they were truly in sync again, not just as partners in love, but as equals in life. Jack also made sure Sarah had the time and resources she needed to continue her artwork. She'd been working on a new piece, one that had been brewing in her mind for months, and Jack saw how much it meant to her. He would often surprise her with little gestures, new art supplies, tickets to art shows, or even just words of encouragement when she needed them most. Sarah had found a new sense of fulfillment, not just in her work, but in the life they were building together. She was more confident than ever in herself and in her ability to pursue her dreams while sharing her life with someone who truly understood her. It wasn't perfect. No relationship ever was. There were still challenges to face. Days when work would demand more than either of them wanted to give. Times when life's stresses would test their patience. But Sarah knew they were stronger now, more connected than they had ever been. And as they grew, they were building a future they both felt proud of. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, watching the sunset, Jack turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "Sarah, I know we've been through a lot together, but I want you to know something. You're not just the woman I love, you're my partner, my equal. You've helped me grow in ways I never thought possible. I can't imagine my life without you." Sarah's heart swelled at his words. She had always admired Jack for his strength and his commitment, but hearing him speak so honestly about their relationship made her realize just how far they had come. "I feel the same way," she said, her voice full of emotion. "You've taught me so much about myself, about what it means to love and to be loved. I never thought I could have everything I wanted, my art, my career, and a love that feels like this. But with you I do." Jack smiled, a look of contentment spreading across his face. "I think we've got something special here, Sarah," he said, squeezing her hand. "Something worth fighting for." As they leaned back against the railing, Sarah felt the weight of the world lift off her shoulders. They had both learned so much about each other, about themselves, and about what it meant to truly commit to something that mattered. She wasn't just living for her work or her art anymore. She was living for the life they had built together, for the future they were going to create. Days turned into months, and Sarah's career continued to soar. Her paintings were being displayed in galleries, and her new role at Parker Enterprises grew more fulfilling each day. Jack remained a constant source of support, always by her side, whether it was a late-night brainstorm or a weekend getaway. Their love, once fragile and uncertain, had transformed into something strong and enduring. Jack's daughter, Lily, had also become an important part of their lives. Sarah had grown close to her, forming a bond that was more than just a stepmother and daughter relationship. Lily had taken to calling Sarah Mom, a word that filled Sarah's heart with love. Sarah knew that this was where she was meant to be, not just with Jack, but as a family. Together, they had built something beautiful, something that Sarah knew would last for the rest of their lives. One night, as Sarah and Jack sat in their living room, enjoying a quiet evening, Jack looked at her, his eyes full of affection. "Sarah," he said, taking her hand in his, "I know I've already asked you once, but I want to ask again. Will you marry me?" Sarah looked at him, her heart racing. This moment, this question, had been years in the making. She had never been more sure of anything in her life. "Yes, Jack," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes, I will." And with that, their love story came full circle. What had started as a chance meeting at a coffee shop, a simple connection between two people, had grown into a beautiful life together. They had faced challenges, fears, and doubts, but in the end, their love had triumphed. And now, as they looked forward to their future together, Sarah knew that no matter what came next, they would always have each other. Together, they were unstoppable,